Hi, everybody. Marina is here, your growth to scale strategist. And today I have the pleasure of having Christine Berry with me. She's a principal consultant in the pharmaceutical, natural health, and cannabis industry. Thank you, Christine, for joining us.
Thank you, Marina, so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, how did you drop into this industry? Like cannabis, it wasn't very popular up until a few years ago when it became legal in Canada. So,
Mhm.
you probably were working in something else before you dropped into the cannabis world, right?
Absolutely. I was actually fully entrenched in the pharmaceutical industry, really with a focus in women's health, and was finding that the work that we were trying to do, some of the product supply chain issues came about where the APIs, as we call it, were not available to be able to produce those products anymore. So I really decided that I had to make some sort of pivot in my career. And a funny story is I actually attended what was called Hemp Fest. And Hemp Fest was where they brought people together in the cannabis industry. So I bought my ticket for $5 and I went in. And when I walked in the room, there was two sides of the room. There were the corporate suits, and the other sides were the guys with the dreadlocks and the bongs and all the paraphernalia of cannabis. And I looked at myself and I thought, if you've got the suits and you've got the paraphernalia coming together, this is going to be something big and I need to be a part of it. And that kind of started my journey. So I started to actively find opportunities. My first opportunity actually was pre-legalization in 2017 in the medical cannabis. Medical cannabis was legal at that point where physicians were able to prescribe medical cannabis for patients. And so I actually joined a company called MedRelief, and I was actually one of the first boots in the ground in Canada promoting medical cannabis to physicians within Western Canada.
So this is interesting because you did say that you saw the suits and the bongs.
Yeah.
Same room. That was a very funny description. So when you started this, were you concerned about, because we were pre-programmed before that these are drugs and these are illegal substances, and suddenly it becomes legalized, it's available in every store and every corner. What did you have any concerns, and what were they?
That's a great question because absolutely, I think there is a lot of stigma surrounding it. And as I grew up with my family, there was a great deal of stigma. You know, my mom just, wagging her finger and saying, if you take drugs, that's it, right? The sort of thing. So definitely a stigma. Going into it, though, what I did learn is actually the benefits that it was providing so many people, such as the veterans. And that was a real eye-opener for me, is allowing them with a proper dosage to be able to conquer their PTSD, reduce anxiety, allowing them to sleep at night. And then also speaking to people that had Crohn's disease, that the only effective treatment for them was actually a medical cannabis. So that really changed my entire attitude. And it was interesting because the people I was working with, as well as learning from them, as well to find out what their why was. Why did they join this industry? And just fascinating to find that it's not any different than the natural health industry or the pharmaceuticals. It's a plant. And this plant has some really remarkable, benefits to it. And I wanted to learn more about that. So that really helped reduce the stigma for me.
That's interesting because we had a very long conversation about integrative medicine and
Yes.
how important it is to not just treat the symptoms, but also treat the disease to fix it, to fix the person. And in many times, like PTSD, if you brought it as an example, the symptoms might be that you freeze in your place, or you can't function because something triggered a memory from your past. And I know because I had that myself happening. And if it happens while you're driving, it's actually a risk. It's a high risk for the driver and the surrounding of people who are in the vehicles that are surrounding them. So, and you can't so according to the law, you're not allowed to use the cannabis while you're driving. But if you're driving and you're having a PTSD episode, you're at risk of having an accident. So how do you think that is mitigated when somebody is dependent on it to function?
That's a great question. What's interesting about cannabis is there's two forms. There's the THC, which is the psychoactive, where you actually have receptors more in your brain area. The second one is CBD, which is the non-psychoactive, that we have many receptors throughout our body that are, outside your pancreas, your liver, it really is within the autoimmune, etc. And that's really, really interesting, is because you have the two different kinds of opportunities with the cannabis, the THC or the CBD, the doctors are able to figure out what they're going to use in a patient. So if somebody has to function throughout the day, then the patient is more apt to use the non-psychoactive, the CBD. So that could be a form of a topical cream, that could be a form of an oil underneath their tongue. That's not going to inhibit their ability to be able to function throughout the day. It's not going to inhibit them from operating machinery, etc. If they are on a THC, for sure, that is. And so that's where it's recommended perhaps to take in the evening at bedtime, because what's interesting is that especially if a patient is on like a cannabis oil, it's very long acting. So it can stay in the system for 6 to 8 hours, right? So if they go to bed, you want to make sure that that's through their system by the time they wake up in the morning. So that's where the THC is really recommended. If somebody's at home, they're working at home, they're not operating machinery, exactly, then they need to really manage that PTSD or their anxiety, etc., then obviously a patient would be allowed to take the THC. And I know a lot of the clinics or the medical cannabis clinics do actually counsel their patients and find that sweet spot for them that's going to work well for them to manage throughout the day, and then of course to have a restful sleep at night.
That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So as a principal consultant, what do you do for a medical clinic or a cannabis clinic? What is your job when you enter?
I do everything. I'm like a one-stop shop, I believe. There's many, many things. So when I first started, basically I took on contracts where I was actually representing the products in the, amongst the physician or the medical community. Also actually, as well as presenting in integrative medicine clinics as well, like you look at chiropractic clinics, massage clinics, etc. Also presenting the products, how it works, what are the common dosages, what are the common applications for the products, and really going around and doing, presentations. The other things I actually do is I actually connect a lot of companies. So if there is a company, for instance, that is a grower, so they have a greenhouse, they grow their cannabis, and then I have another company that has a great product, but they need a grower to help them produce it. So I connect those dots. So really, really align and connect. Another thing I also do is I find products for medical platforms. So I'll have a medical platform contact me and say, hey, Chris, we're looking for a specialized hot chocolate that might have CBD in it. We're looking for a specialized topical that might have a very interesting applicator. So they'll come to me where I actually will find those products in Canada and go through the due diligence of the paperwork, making sure everything's in place, the quality assurance documents, the certificate of analysis, etc. So I kind of do a little bit of everything. I also do some sales work as well. I love sales a lot. And so I do some accessory work as well, where I introduce accessories for medical patients at, whether it's on the platforms as well. So I kind of have my fingers in a little bit of everything. And as well, I volunteer at medical cannabis clinic 2 nights a week, and I actually help counsel medical cannabis patients.
Wow, you're a very busy lady.
It's fun busy though. It's wonderful when you see people that you see them as, again, with anxiety and PTSD, and we're able to get them to a point where they're able to manage, be able to get back to their active daily living. That's just the rewarding part. So it never feels like work. It's just like, wow, this is a breakthrough. This is wonderful. This is so great for them, right? Because we're seeing so much anxiety and so much more since post-COVID, right? Even more so.
Oh yeah, for sure. This COVID, for the 2 years that it closed us in our house, it affected our mental state, not only because it isolated us, but it deprogrammed us from building relationships. Suddenly, like I have a niece that is in the university, and we were talking about the fact that the students that are with her in class, they're not talking to each other. They are lacking the communication skills or the ability to deliver their thoughts in a structured manner that will get a result, that will bring them into around one table to achieve one task, which was their assignment for the class. And I literally need to sit there and instruct her on what to say or how to say it or how to try to bring them together, because without that, they will fail the class.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I know that I have a daughter that was to graduate high school right in the middle of COVID. So missed out on that amazing experience of walking the stage and, embracing that the new beginning of going into adulthood or young adulthood. It just is very, very sad. And I do believe there's so many implications, and we're just seeing the beginning of it. We're not seeing the full result of the mental health issues that will align with that. It's very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, that's for sure. How about, here's an interesting question to me. I love asking it every single consultant or clinic owner that I meet. What are the biggest challenges that you see in the clinics you're consulting for? They're kind of a repetitive theme that they will ask you to help with, or they will ask you to find somebody that can help them with. It can, I don't know, it can be HR problem, it can be whatever. So what do you encounter?
I think the biggest thing is patient retention. I think that you need to do a really good job that first time out. When patients are coming and asking those questions, coming with their research, I think we really need to sit down with those patients and honor the fact that they're trying to figure out themselves of what's going on, and really, really to spend that time, and can't be the 10 or 15 minutes consulting, like really block off that time with them. And I think that's the biggest thing is patient retention. And I see that a lot in medical cannabis as well, is that patients aren't always given the best instructions on how to use product or the next steps or the follow-ups. And I think that that's where I really see a lapse.
Do you see the clinics, or do you consult them to automate some of these things, like follow-up, like having follow-up consulting with them the second or third time just to see whether or not the product is working as expected? Do they do that, or do they just...
Yeah, you know what, we would hope they would. I can't really, account for the other clinics, but I know the one thing that I really try to do with the patients that I see is that I keep, for myself, is I email. So I will email them the links, because with medical cannabis, you actually get everything online. So you have to register with a medical cannabis platform where you can buy the products, like a medical cannabis by Shoppers or a catalog, or JMF Growers, one of them. And then we actually fax the medical document or the prescription to that particular platform. So once that's received, then I make sure the patient has a link. We go through all the products. Once their medical document is approved, then they order the products. So I'm online with them for ordering the products. And once they receive the products, then I take them through the process. And then obviously a follow-up, usually 3 weeks after, because it takes about 3 weeks for the CBD or the THC actually to take full effect into the body and for results.
So I just learned something. I didn't know there is a difference between medical cannabis or medical thing, or the one that I go in my street mall and I go buy it. So why would somebody go through the medical path versus just going to the store and ask the dispensary, hey, what do you have now? Like, I have a headache, can you help?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, number one, with the recreational, by law and by really some of the different provincial boards, when you go into a recreational store, the bud tender, as they call them, are not able to give any medical advice whatsoever. So if you come in and saying, you know what, I have arthritis, can you recommend something? They can't. They can't say, yes, this helps arthritis. They can say, we offer topicals. Whereas in the medical aspect, they physically actually have an appointment with a medical professional. So the doctor I work with, she's actually an oncologist as well during the day and does medical cannabis cannabis at night. And she sits and consults with patients, and not all patients actually will be authorized to be given medical cannabis for a variety of reasons, right? Whether it's like already addiction issues, whether, they're the other medications they might take, might be taking. The physician assesses that all. So once that happens, then she does like a prescription, right? And we will send that in. But what's wonderful too is that patients, if they have third-party insurance, some of the insurance companies actually cover medical cannabis, like a Green Shield or the Sun Lifes of this world, even some Blue Cross plans, right? And that's the big difference as well, as you can claim it on income tax. So you can't do that in the recreational. You can't have insurance coverage. You can't claim it on income tax. And that's the big difference. Plus you get the specialized consult with a physician, and as well as usually a nurse practitioner or a consultant that is able to take them through the process.
Can medical cannabis, or the medical aspect of okay, I'll start the question from a different angle. No, because I have a path that I'm trying to get to, but I need to have a precursor to it. So is it a special doctor? Is it a special education in the university that they have to take in order to become a doctor that can prescribe cannabis? What kind of education does it require from the doctor?
Yeah, that's interesting. So there's no education at this point. Right now, basically, a lot of the physicians, if the college allows, because for instance, in Alberta, the Alberta College, they have regulations about physicians who are prescribing medical cannabis, right? Every college every province college will have some sort of regulations. In Alberta, there's encouraged to get continuing education events, attend events that maybe producers or the growers are presenting on, but really it's about the people that are working in the industry, visiting the physicians, introducing them to the prescription or how that looks. And it's all about information and education in the industry itself. But at this point, there's nothing. I don't even know in medical school now if they're even doing anything still on cannabis. I know we work hard with the pain clinics and trying to get our foot in the door and educate and inform in the pain clinics, and meeting some resistance, obviously. I mean, it's quite easy for traditional medicine to use other methods or, other prescriptions, and trying to change that mindset to a cannabis as well. So yeah, it's going to take some time. I think it's really, really going to take some time. There are courses out there. I know there's some of the universities, including Mount Royal University here in Calgary, that do continuing education, that's more for the general population or somebody that wants to get into the industry itself.
Okay. And I was trying to formulate that question, because if you don't have a formal education about cannabis, or the usage or the quantity that you're giving to the patients, how can they figure out, or how can I trust a doctor when I come into them to give me the right amount of that medication without endangering my life and without endangering my function during the day? Like on pharmaceuticals, you have labels, right? You have take 1 pill 3 times a day, or take it with food, without food. Is it similar for cannabis as well?
Yes. So just going back to your original. So in Canada, there are regulations of how much cannabis can be authorized per day for a patient, right? So for instance, a reg might be 2 grams a day for 3 months. And then after 3 months, that prescription has ended. They need to see the physician again to actually get a renewal, right? It's the regulations. Yes. So what happens is that all of the products have labels. It's a different label though, with cannabis, because as you'll see from the packaging, right, you'll see like the THC flower usually on the packaging, and then a little bit about it. But any of the other instructions, I mean, that comes with the counseling from, their nurse practitioner or the physicians during that time. Once they get the product, the doctor will say, okay, so you have cannabis oil you selected. We will start slow and steady. So we start, let's say, at 0.3 for 3 days. Then after 3 days, we'll go to 0.5 for 3 days. And if they find that they're getting relief at 0.5, you stay at that point, right? So it's a very slow and steady approach. And that's why I'm not a proponent so much of recommending edibles right away, because I think edibles are very, very hard to control. I'd rather have a patient be on a capsule or an oil, a cannabis oil, because you control that a lot more, as well as a topical, right? You know that if you put a loonie size on, you know that's all you need. So I think there's a lot more control too, and it's really knowing your patient and their capabilities. Like for instance, if you have somebody very elderly that wants to use a topical but they can't open up the topical jar, that might not be the best bet for them, right? You might want to be able to find something else that's going to be easier for them.
So does the person who prescribes it has to be a medical, like MD, medical doctor, or can they be can a chiropractor get the license to prescribe edibles or pills or whatever, because that's a part of the integrative medicine?
Yes, not at this point, not according to Health Canada. There is actually a revisit to the regulations currently, and that is involving CBD. So the non-psychoactive that we spoke about, that is really good at reducing inflammation, etc. And, you know, that's going to be really something that they're going to look at, whether they're going to allow that over the counter. So a topical or a massage therapist can use CBD in their creams that they massage with. So there is a real revisit happening right now with Health Canada. So stand by in the next 6 months. There might be some significant changes, at least for the CBD aspect, and more availability, like as you said, in the chiropractic's office, the massage therapy, etc.
You know, I learned so much from you today, because I'm working with medical clinics and we're trying to increase their ability to help patients with all the tools that they have today, with everything they studied. There are more tools out there that people are not taking the time or don't have the resources to go out and learn about these options. And I believe that this interview will be an opening act for a lot of chiropractors, a lot of medical facilities that are more of on the holistic side, like the Eastern side versus specifically MD's Western side, to open up their mind and think about the possibilities of helping their patients additionally to what they're doing with their manual adjustments or the manual work, because not always those manual adjustments, they're good relief, but they're not long lasting. So we're trying to find something that will be a combination. 100%. So I learned a lot.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, no, it's going to be really, I think the CBD, it's a long time coming, really, because it is non-psychoactive. There are so many benefits. You're seeing hemp oil already on the shelves, etc. So I think this is the next step, and you're right. It will open up, an opportunity for when a chiropractor is treating to be able to say, we also have this cream. Maybe they might have a self-branded or a home brand themselves, right? But right now, it's very limited. Anything has to be through all our licensed producers in Canada that have site licenses, etc. Much like pharmaceuticals, or even like your NPN numbers or your natural health products. So it's going to be a very interesting time. I mean, we're seeing CBD in makeup. We're seeing like skincare, body oils, bath bombs. I mean, it really, sky's the limit.
So if somebody wanted to reach you, who is your perfect customer and how do they reach you?
My perfect customer is, even somebody like yourself, like Rhoda Scale, anybody that's actually going into and making change in medical clinics, a licensed producer that's wanting to increase their portfolio or look at a different way to increase their bottom line profits, or of course a clinic that needs somebody that as an educator to their patients as well.
And how do they reach out to you?
Oh, certainly. They can email me at numeric2wtech@outlook.com.
Perfect. And I'll put that contact information in the video's comments. And I wanted to thank you. Thank you so much, Christine. It was great. It was long overdue. We were trying to do this several times. But I'm happy that we finally managed to meet and take this information out there because it's so
Absolutely. Yeah, Marina, thank you so much. And let's touch base again and see, there's going to be, as I said, significant changes over the next 6 months, and would love to have another conversation or, and talk about anything, whether it's pharmaceutical or natural health. I can certainly help as well.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Have a beautiful day. Take care.
You too.
Bye.